All right, item number 10, adoption of the Yuba City's fiscal year 2015-16 operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 2015-2016 and the appropriations limit. Robin Bertagna, please.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I guess good news for the youth members of the audience. It won't be an hour and a half tonight. That was last Tuesday night, where we went through in great detail and talked about the proposed operating budget. I reviewed it with City Council and members of the public that were present. So tonight's presentation will actually be very brief. It's just a summary overview level. We really got into the details of it last week. With that said, Diana Langley, our Public Works Director, also presented a list of capital improvement projects that were included in the proposed CIP budget last year, or for next year, excuse me, and we went through that as well. The budget for fiscal year 16 is pretty much a status quo budget, as we discussed last week. It continues to implement the priority goals of the City Council, which are public safety and infrastructure management and maintenance. The two largest changes that are included in the proposed operating budget for the general fund actually reduce the deficit gap by $500,000. The ongoing revenues increased by $1.6 million, and the ongoing expenditures only increased $1.1 million. It's the first time we've closed the gap on our deficit in many, many years. The other thing that's unique about the fiscal year 15-16 budget is that it does include ongoing or one-time revenues, for sales tax of $754,000. That's due to the elimination of the triple flip that the state of California is phasing out, and our final payment, which we won't actually receive until August of 2016, but it's attributable to revenues earned in 15-16, so we need to budget for it and include it in our comprehensive annual financial report as revenue. And as council requested last week, when we put together the adopted budget version, we are footnoting that all over the place, every opportunity we have, just to make it very clear that those are one-time revenues that we will not be seeing again in the future. With robust growth in sales tax and property tax revenues, you see the trend line here for both revenues and expenditures. The line which is not dotted is actual results based upon past history, and the blue line represents the general fund revenues, with the red line being the general fund expenditures. We're expected to continue seeing growth in expenditures and that growth outpacing revenues until fiscal year 16-17, when our pension obligation bonds are paid off. Then in fiscal year 18, we finally see a surplus budget again, which it'll be the first time in about 10 years we've seen that. And we'll no longer be budgeting to have a deficit. With that said, as the city continues its economic recovery, it's going to be an evaluation of balancing the resources that we have available with the needs. We know that our employees are very much looking forward to receiving raises. It's been about 6 years since employees have received a cost of living raise or a flat rate increase in their paycheck. But we need to balance that against the need for infrastructure renewal and replacement. Finance Department commissioned a study to evaluate how much we should be setting aside for our infrastructure renewal and replacement, because during the recession, all we've been doing is the immediate need projects that require general fund dollars, and we know we should be more proactive in taking care of the city's needs so that the infrastructure will be here for many generations to come without the condition deteriorating. So that's something that we'll be looking at down the road. At least now we have a preliminary view of what that looks like. So as I bring you forward budgets in the future, it's going to be a balanced approach between the very competing needs of the city. This is a line graph of the wastewater fund activity. It includes actual data for fiscal year through fiscal year 14, and fiscal year 15 data is projected. Fiscal year 16 data is based upon the proposed budget. The green line is revenues and includes both operating and capital. The red line is expenditures, includes both operating costs and debt service. The gold line represents CIP project expenditures, and those fluctuate over time, as you can see, due to the rising and falling of the gold line. You can see that for the wastewater fund, revenues have always exceeded expenditures. We've been able to adequately maintain our debt coverage ratio for the wastewater fund. Thank you. And for the water fund, this is a similar slide with revenues green, expenditures red, and capital in gold. The previous rate increases approved by City Council supported the fiscal health of the water fund until the onset of the recent drought. The fiscal year 16 budget would be deficient when looking only at operating revenues and operating expenditures with debt service included, if not for the expected receipt of $1.6 million in capital connection fee revenues related to the Prop 84 waterline project. And we know that we continue with the consumption that we're encouraging and required by the state to have our citizens save in water during the drought. It's definitely something we're taking into consideration with the water rate study that's currently in progress. And we'll be coming back to council with recommendations to address the sustainability of the water fund financially into the future. This is a summary of all the capital projects that are included in the proposed CIP budget for fiscal year 16, listed by funding source, with a total of $36.5 million in recommended projects. I know we went in great detail last week. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I would request that City Council adopt the three resolutions attached to the staff report, including the operating budget, the CIP budget, and the GAN appropriations limit.
Thank you, Robin. Any questions of staff? All right. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right.